Hello, and thank you for joining us for another session of dedication. Fans remember the Bay City Rollers, the only Bay City Rollers themed podcast in the world, hosted by Bay City Rollers fan events. I'm Suze, and with me, as always, is Laura. Hi, Laura.
Hey, Suze.
Hey, we're back to back. We're doing pretty good this week. We have nothing for months, and then two back to back. So
We've
fun.
been busy girls.
Some busy girls. Our guest this time is Jeff Grinstein. And Jeff, as most fans in the US will remember or may remember him affectionately as Horshack. He was photographed in all the fan magazines by Bob Gruen, especially as a guy roller fan, a guy in roller gear with a bunch of girls and a fanboy. He became Sid Bernstein's right hand fan with helping promoting all things Bay City Rollers in New York. I'm sure he has some great stories to share. I'm so sure he does. And I'm ready to hear them. Are you ready, Laura?
Yeah, I can't wait.
All right, let's bring him on. Hi, Jeff. Thanks for joining us today. How are you?
I'm doing well, thanks.
Oh, good. We're so excited to talk to you.
Me too.
We know you have a lot of good stories, so let's dig right in. Um, let's start from the beginning. Do you remember how and when you first got into the Bay City Rollers?
I'll never forget it. I
I
was
bet.
watching the Howard Cosell show and I saw them live from Scotland, and I was just fascinated by them. And I watched them on the Howard Cosell show, and then later in the week, I took my bicycle and I went down to a local record store and I bought the record. And I came home and I listened to the record. And I remember my mother yelling at me, turn it down, which was typical of those days. And then I found out that they were going to be live at the Sullivan Theater the following Saturday. So I went down there, and believe it or not, that day changed my life forever. I met Sid Bernstein, and after talking to him that day, Sid asked me to come that following Monday and help him answer fan mail. Now, Sid had a 1 year contract to represent the Bay City Rollers. So for that year, I was basically at his office almost 2, 3 times a week, helping him answer fan mail. And then when he moved his offices from there to Radio City, I went with him. And that's when I started dealing with backstage for all the celebrities that came in to do the concerts. And whenever the Rollers were in town, I would go hang out, and eventually I became friends with them.
Wow. So
Wow.
for those who don't know Sid Bernstein, I mean, a lot of us probably do, but tell us a little bit about
Sid
Sid.
brought the Beatles to America. Sid
Yeah.
managed the Rascals and a whole bunch of other groups prior to representing the Bay City Rollers. After the Bay City Rollers, he managed Laura Branigan and a whole bunch of other things, but he was known basically for doing the Beatles at Shea Stadium.
Yeah, he's a big
Oh,
deal.
yeah.
Yeah, he
So
was a
you
big
scored
deal.
tickets. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
He was a big deal, and I was friends with him until he died a few years ago.
Oh. So you score tickets for like that first show. Was that
Absolutely.
just you going down there and just like knocking on the stage door, or was there a ticket? I don't know what it looked like back then. Was there?
I'm going to tell you something very funny.
Yeah.
Okay. I went down there, and obviously I was the only guy down there.
Yep.
Hmm.
We
So,
want to talk about that too.
so it was, Sid said, I'll take you in. And there were two young ushers who later became the executive producers with Ray Romano.
Oh,
Wow.
really?
Okay. So, I mean, that's how they started as the ushers. And, they just let me, I didn't have a ticket. I mean,
Mm,
the girls were lined up, and I think most of the girls got in. But I mean, they selected who sits where, and obviously they put me in the front because I was a guy, and
yeah. Yeah.
well, and then I was always talking to Sid that day because he and I just clicked, and all the girls started like, "What's going on? And what's doing this? And what's doing that?" And I guess because I was a guy, I had the edge,
Yeah.
and the girls would
Definitely.
just cling to me, and it was like it made me feel good. I mean, I didn't have friends in those days, and all of a
Were
sudden,
you
all these girls are asking me questions, and
were
so
you
then
the sixth roller?
was I what?
Were you the sixth roller?
You know what?
It felt like that, I bet.
I want to make you laugh. I once asked one of the guys in the group, and I'm not sure if it was Derek or Eric, who is the sixth roller? And I love their answer. The sixth roller were all of our fans.
Oh, I love that
Oh,
too.
I'm
Oh,
not sure if it was Derek or Eric. It was one of them that said that, and I'll never forget that. It
that's
was
sweet.
all of our fans, and that's what made the Bay City Rollers. It was the loyalty of their fans through thick and
oh,
thin all these years.
and here we still are.
Yes.
Now,
See,
okay,
the
you talk
fans
about
never
being,
gone away.
yeah, you talk about being the only guy. This fascinates me, and it fascinated me back then because Jeff, your picture was all over 16 magazine. I know Bob Bruin photographed you. He knew you personally. Um, First of all, what was it like to be, a guy roller fan? Because we'll never know what that's like. And how did that change your life? I mean, you became. I mean, we affectionately called you Horshack because you kind of resembled Ron Pelio. Is that how you pronounce his last name?
Ron
But
Palillo.
affectionately, you were everywhere in the magazines, and we're like, who is this guy? What's his story? So tell us.
I was traveling. I was following them all over the country. I took a Greyhound bus from New York to L.A.
Oh my
3
gosh.
days on a bus. Had
Wow.
no money. I used to take pictures from the magazine, and I had a little button machine. I used to make my own buttons and sell them for $1. If I sold enough buttons, I could go to the next city.
Wow.
Wow. That's
That
amazing.
was the little, that was the joke. I remember
Entrepreneurs.
well, I mean, that's how I did it. I mean, when they came to LA, I won't mention the hotel. I had no money for a hotel. I slept one night outside the garbage cans.
Mm.
I
Well,
mean,
when we're young, we can do that. We can't do that now. It
no, I
hurts
mean,
when you.
the stuff we got away with then, obviously you can't do now.
Yes,
Of course, yeah,
absolutely.
different times for sure.
Completely
So, do
different.
you think by being a male fan that you had different? Well, you definitely had different experiences, but you definitely had different opportunities as well. I mean, you weren't screaming in their face and trying to tear their clothes off.
There was
So,
always a group. There was always a group. And wherever we were, there was a group of maybe 10 or 15 people. The only other guy was Vinny the photographer. Vinny's
okay,
Elefante, the photographer, me, and there was always about 12 to 15 girls that went everywhere. Wherever they went when they were in town, we were everywhere. And
Wow.
I mean, they just expected us to show up. I remember
yeah.
it was a day that they were in town and we didn't show up at all. We showed up the next day, and Les came over to me and said, "Well, where were you yesterday?"
Oh, is that right?
Oh,
And I
wow.
just laughed. I said, "I forgot what happened." I said, "Well, he goes, "Oh, we were talking about you last night." It turned into that kind of thing. I mean, we were everywhere. I
You
mean, they
became
would
an
go up to
extension.
Clive Davis's house. We wait downstairs 3 hours. They would go to a restaurant for dinner. We wait outside for hours. There was a
Wow.
restaurant, famous restaurant in Little Italy called Pelucci's, and it was freezing. And we were outside for like 2 hours, and then somebody sent out hot chocolates for us. It was like 10 of us
Oh,
that night.
Oh, that's
And it
awesome.
turned out it was the one and only Mike Lefner.
the,
Wow.
the great man himself.
Well, I love Mike. I
Yeah.
mean, and Perry Cooper in those days, there was a big joke where at some point, I mean, Carol Kleffner was doing the PR and she was doing an incredible job. But I
Hmm.
was doing things on a completely different level than her. I mean, I became like a center of attention, which I'll admit I love. And
Hey,
the girls would like, what's going on? Well, I remember one specific thing which I'll never forget. Mike Lefton and Perry Cooper told me that the band was coming on a flight so and so and so and so at one airport. And we found out that night that that wasn't true. They were coming in at a different airport on a different flight. So what did I do? I picked up the phone. I don't know if I made 15, 20, 25 phone calls. And I just put the word of the real flights and the real information. So the next day I show up at the right airport and in walks Perry Cooper and Mike Lefner. And Mike Lefner turns around to me and says, "Oh, so obviously you figured it out. I said, yeah. I said, you couldn't fool me. He says, how did you
Mm,
find out, where they were on? I said, come on, we have people inside the airlines. We know everything.
Yeah.
He
Yeah.
said, yeah. He said, but there's no fans here. I said, yeah, that's right. As we're walking through the one um, gate into the next gate, all of a sudden he hears some screaming. I had about 400 girls there.
oh
Wow.
my
And
gosh.
he just
It,
looked
it,
at
it was,
me and said, how did you do this? I said, well, don't you know telephone, tell a friend, tell a Bay City Roller fan? No. And after
you know,
that, that's what I would do.
it really was something how we, I mean, even here in Philadelphia, we knew things in real time, and we don't know how we did know. There was no social media. There was no, we just knew things in real time. It was incredible.
Do
I
you
know there was that.
do you
Sorry.
remember do you remember when Electric Factory was going to sell tickets for Philly and we camped out the night before? Were you there for that?
I I was there for the Tower Theater show. I don't remember the laughing.
All
I
right.
don't remember that one.
No, it was for the Tower Theater. We camped
Oh,
out
oh, okay.
before.
Oh, was that the name of the ticket agency?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was there.
Were you there like the night before?
Well, but I think my mom took us at like 3 a.m. So I can't say we were there the night before, but
All right, I was the first online
Oh wow.
with a bunch of people. We got there 10 o'clock at night and froze our butts off all
it
night.
was freezing. It was like February.
Yeah, I ended up getting 8 tickets in the first row.
Wow.
I got
And,
balcony seats, Jeff.
and I
Thanks.
gave and I gave a bunch. I sold them at cost to a bunch of people, and I think that show was on my birthday because the big joke is, and there's pictures to prove this, fans. All of a sudden, I'm standing there. 2 minutes later, I was gone. About 20 girls fell on top of me, and that was
Oh,
my birthday that night. I remember that. So we got
that's a
back
good
to
birthday for most men. I don't know.
God. No, that was a nightmare. My back
Oh
hurt for
boy.
2 days. So we got back to the hotel, and Les comes over to me and says, "Are you okay?" I said, "Yeah." He says, "One minute I was singing, and I saw you. The next minute, all I saw were these girls on top of you." He said, and I said, "Well, if that's what I get for coming here on my birthday, I should have stayed home." He said, "Oh, today's your birthday?" And he brought me into like the restaurant. And I don't know, I was not 21, and they bought me a drink. I forgot what it was.
Oh.
Oh.
And
So
then I sat with Eric, I think Derek and Les, and they were having hot chocolates and the non-alcoholic drinks. I remember that. And then we had a piece of cake, and nobody knew we were back there. It was very funny.
so
And
you
Wow.
definitely had better experiences than most of us. So when's your birthday?
May 14th,
Yeah,
2
May
weeks from
13th was the Tower Theater show.
now. Well, that was
Yeah.
my
That's
birthday.
awesome.
Yeah.
I'll never
So
forget that night.
sorry.
I said, I'll never forget that night. It ended up in pictures all over the country.
Yeah, that
That's
was
fabulous.
oh, that's awesome. So you had access from the get-go pretty much,
Yeah.
thanks to your relationship with Sid. And so you said you ran like the fan club, is that right? What
Yeah. I ran
what
it.
what did that entail?
It was doing what I was doing. It was reading fan letters and reaching out to the local girls that were becoming fans. I mean, I used to see what was from the five boroughs. I mean, that's where I would call the girls and tell them, "Oh, the rollers are coming in. Here's the fight information. Here's this information. Here's that information. Oh, the rollers are going to be here. The rollers are going to be there." And we would get crowds. I mean,
Mm.
that's what
That's
I was able
amazing.
to do. I mean,
So
when they were in California, I was standing by the pool, and Les and my Kleffner pushed me in the pool with all my clothes on. I mean, girls could not have been that close at that time.
no,
Right.
yeah,
That was at the height. I mean, then I did the Bay City Roller Parties, Woody's Party at Rockefeller Center,
yeah,
which is like one of the most famous parties ever thrown.
yeah.
We took over Rockefeller Center. And then I did another party years later where I showed up in a limousine with Tam.
Wow.
Wow.
Tam came to it. I had pictures of me in the limousine with Tam painting.
What was that celebrating? Do you remember?
It was just a Bay City Roller
Just to,
Party.
just to get together. Yeah. So
Yeah.
in Caroline Sullivan's book, are you officially Barbarino? We think you are.
Yes.
Okay. We scoop that. Yay.
Look, I love Caroline.
Oh, we
She's
love her too.
awesome.
We
Her,
love her too.
her account of things that happen, I'll take it with a grain of salt.
Well,
I
it's her
remember
story.
certain things a different way, but
Well, I
she's
think that's
pretty accurate.
normal.
She's pretty accurate.
Yeah, I think that's normal with most people's memories. We all have our own.
We had a unique friendship with the guys because we were always there in New York. Then we started going all over the country. I mean, they never knew where we were going to show up.
Well, tell us about that. You guys were kids still. You were. I don't know about you, but Caroline was a little bit older than us, but not by much. But you
What year are
definitely
you
had.
talking about? 76?
Well, you had.
77?
Yeah, all of that.
I was born at 59, so you figure it out.
Okay, so you're a little bit older, but not much. But you had cars and jobs, so you were able to travel.
I
So
didn't have a
tell
car
us.
when you started this.
No,
My
so you were
friend-
taking the bus to different cities.
I didn't have a car. Caroline had the blue station wagon.
So were you all piling into that car and going from city to city?
At some point, I got a car later on.
So
But
tell us some of the road stories.
no, here's a story you will like. It was a Thursday or a Friday that I went up to Arista Records to see Perry Cooper and Mike Leffner.
Okay.
And, they were trying to get an ad on RKO in Boston. And
Oh, wow.
it wasn't that easy in those days because, radio ran a different way.
Mm-hmm.
So I decided that I was going to go up there and raise hell. So I drove up there early Saturday. Oh, I was told that I should call up and request the record over the weekend and have people call in to request it. So I just figured, I was bored. Called up the kids in Boston, drove up to Boston. I remember I got there really, really early in the morning, went up to RKO, called the guy from downstairs, a payphone, and said, play the Bay City Rollers. He said, no. I said, I'm downstairs. I'm not leaving till you play it.
Oh, my God.
I said, I'm not leaving till you play the record. Well,
now, was this Saturday? Was this Saturday night you were requesting?
No, this was a Saturday morning.
No, the song you were requesting.
I don't remember what song. It was after Saturday night. It was
Okay.
later on.
Okay.
And I don't remember what song it was. Maybe Bye Bye Baby. I don't remember quite. But I remember that as the morning went, the DJ kept saying, well, there's a couple of Bay City Roller fans begging me to play the record, and I ain't playing it. That kind of stuff.
Oh, my goodness.
Girls started showing up, and girls started showing up, and girls started showing up. And by 11 o'clock in the morning, I had made this DJ absolutely crazy. I probably had about 75 to 100 girls at that point.
Oh, my gosh.
Roller songs, screaming, chanting, whatever. Finally, a security guard came out and came over to me. I was the only guy there and said, you can bring 3 girls with you.
Oh, my.
They picked 3 of the craziest, loudest girls. And they took us to the building and they brought us upstairs into a room. And the DJ came in and said, what are you guys doing? I said, play the freaking record.
Mm-hmm.
So he turned around and says, you know what? He let me and one girl in the studio, put us on headphones. And he just, all of a sudden, he goes, and we're live. And he said, now, Jeff, what is your last name? And why are you here? I said, I'm trying to get you to play the record. I think you should play the record. And he goes, there's a bunch of girls downstairs screaming. I mean, how do I get them to stop? I said, play the record. All I kept saying to him, this poor DJ was play the record, play the record. Finally, he plays the record. The phones lit up. Boston went crazy. And I think the rest ended up being history with Mike Leffner, Perry Cooper, Carol. And it just picked up from there.
Wow.
Victory was yours.
I showed up the following Monday to Arista, and I just got to the receptionist. I said, is Mike and Perry on? And the girl started laughing. I went in, and Mike and Perry went to their office, and they just looked at me and said, there's nothing I can say. I have nothing to say. Here's some posters. Here's some, flats.
They should have given you an office, quite frankly.
You know what? I didn't need, it wasn't that type of thing. It was
No.
me being with the girls on the street and the communication, and it was a team. I mean,
Yeah.
what created the Bay City Rollers was a team. It wasn't any one person. I mean, you
No.
got to go
I know
back
what
to
you
Cam
mean.
and
Yeah.
everybody in Scotland, and Sid and the team he put together in New York and the
Mhm.
U.S. I mean, it was a team. We wouldn't
And,
have followed it if we didn't think it was something special. We wouldn't have done what we did unless we felt that we were part of something.
no, and you're right. And you said either Eric or Derek said that the six roller what were the fans, and the fans were a big part of their success. I mean, we had a Philly crew, and we had Mike Douglas in Philly, so they would always, well, we would think they would always be coming through. So there would always be a gaggle of gals there, hoping that day was going to be a day they were going to do a taping. So yeah, there was always community, always, like you say, dial a friend. What did you say?
Dial a
Tell a
friend.
friend, telephone, tell a
I
roller
was there
fan.
for the Mike Douglas show.
Yeah, that was great. It was right down in
If
Philly.
I showed up and I was there, I always got in. The only place I never got in is when they were taping like the HR Puff and Stuff show or things like that, which were
Okay.
closed sets.
So you were in California during those days, during
Yeah,
the cross show.
that's where the famous Bob Gruen picture "Beware Roller Maniac on Tour" shirt was from.
Oh, really?
I was through the fence outside the TV studio.
Oh, wow.
I still
Wow.
have that shirt. I don't think it'll fit, but I still have that shirt.
Oh, that's so awesome.
That's what frames are for. You could frame it.
Yeah, I'll get a new shadow box for it.
There you go.
That would be
So,
awesome.
so
What's real? Go ahead.
I want to go back to like when they were actually touring, because there were only a few years when they toured. What, 3 years, 2 years?
Hmm.
So, what were some of the cities that you traveled to, and any crazy, besides being thrown in a pool, that's pretty crazy. Road stories, from different cities. And like you went to Boston. Where else did you go?
God, we did Philly, Boston. Um, God, I think California. Um, I don't know. We did so many. I mean, that's what It's a game tour. I think we did like 10 shows or something.
All driving, or would you fly to some of these
We
places?
flew to some of the places.
Oh, okay.
I
So
remember
you got,
being in some city and I couldn't get home, so it was my first flight that I ever took.
Oh, wow.
I don't even remember what city we were in. I never flew on the same plane with them, but I used to. We used to just chase like when they would have secret exits of the venues. We always figured out where it was. They would leave in bread trucks. They would leave in a Brinks trucks one day. One day
oh,
they left and they did an outdoor festival and they left in the Winnebago. We knew they were in the Winnebago, and we
mm,
followed them. There were cities where we would show up. There was one city, and I don't forget. We decided not to go to the airport because we knew what hotel we were in, and we had booked hotels in the same hotel room as they are. Now, in those days, to give you a little, I would get a hotel room, and all the girls would join me. So there was one night in a city, I slept in the bathtub, and 15 girls slept in the room.
Oh
you,
my
you know
God.
what? I mean, could you imagine in these times that happening? I mean, it really was so innocent. I mean, there
Oh,
was
that stuff
nothing
won't happen today.
that would never happen today, would it?
Did you
No.
guys ever see the movie Almost Famous?
Oh, yeah, it's one of my
No,
favorites.
I haven't.
Oh, Laura, you have to watch it. It's one of my favorite
Lori,
movies.
Lori, that is the story of my life.
Really?
You've
Okay,
got
I'm
to
gonna have to watch it now.
see the uncut version, but you've got to see that movie. I mean,
Yeah.
it's a classic.
So, are you Cameron Crowe in
Cameron,
that
I mean,
that scenario?
That's Cameron Crowe's true story.
No, I know. So, are you
Oh
saying
yeah, I
that's
was
you?
definitely like Cameron Crowe.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay. You're not the Philip Seymour Hoffman one
No,
character. Okay, you're all right. I got you. I'm
no,
just
I was
putting.
traveling band to band. I didn't
Yeah.
write for a magazine, but I mean, I traveled all over. I had, there's one scene where he's in a room with like wakes up the four girls.
With all, exactly.
I woke up in a room with like 15 girls one night, and I slept in the bathtub.
Yeah, no, that would
But
absolutely not happen.
it was very innocent. Nobody could afford a room.
No,
I
exactly.
remember the girls each paid like $3 a piece or something for that night.
Oh, that's
And
crazy.
there's real beauty in that innocence, don't you think?
Yeah.
I mean,
I
like, I don't know what any of us would have done if we, you know, came face to face with one back then. It's kind of like in your mind, you think, oh, I'm gonna, tiptoe through a daisy field or whatever. I don't know, but it was never anything
It was never
salacious. It was
salacious.
always very
Yes,
innocent, very innocent.
definitely.
mean, I started doing things like Sid got me on the Stanley Siegel show, and I had just seen Sean Cassidy, and I was talking about, oh, there was no drugs and no sex. I mean, what did I know? I'd never seen drugs. I was a virgin. I didn't know better then. Years later, it was a different story. But I mean, as I grew older, the rollers grew older, scenarios changed, but the fans always stayed loyal. I
Yeah.
mean, when
Yes.
they were recording the album in Jersey, I mean, I used to go hang out at the studio. We used to go to the house in Jersey and hang out with them. I really developed an incredible friendship with Derek. I mean, little
Really?
known, I used to go take Derek out to clubs. I had worked with Laura Branigan, Peter Allen. I mean, by that time, and I had passes to every single club in New York. So, I mean, I used to take them out when nobody knew they were in town. What's funny is in those days, I lived in a 4-floor walk up apartment. Derek walked up 4 floors one night to come to my apartment. We, we had a drink and we went out to the clubs.
Wow.
Was this when they lived at the Tudor house in New Jersey?
Yeah.
Yeah, a big house.
Sometimes. And
So,
then I
okay,
went out with Derek when he was in LA. He and I met up in LA. We went out and we met at a restaurant and then we went out to clubs. I mean,
was
it
he a
was
dancer? Were you guys into the disco scene? When you say clubs, I don't know what that really means.
it was clubs. We were dancing, I took him to some famous clubs in LA. We went to some famous clubs in New York. Um, After, recording and doing the things they were doing, Eric and Derek, I mean, that's who I would hang out with. They wanted like to do normal things that
Yeah,
most people could do. You know, they would get recognized in a club or two and just say, "Hey, I just want to, hang," and the people
yeah,
would leave them alone. I mean, the clubs that I took him to were used to celebrities, were used to things like that. I mean, with Laura Branigan, I was at 54. I was at every major club that you could imagine in those days with Peter Allen, Laura Branigan.
Wow.
Madonna started out in those clubs with Jelly Bean. Uh,
mm.
we used
Well,
to do shows with all the major disco acts in those days.
yeah. Were the Rollers ever at 54?
Somewhere.
Yeah, I don't remember ever seeing pictures of them there. I was just wondering. That
No,
would be cool. That would be cool.
no pictures.
Yeah. Well, that was what
Well, I won't
54 was
talk about
pretty
that.
famous for.
I will
Oh,
not
okay.
talk about that.
That's fine. That's
I'm not
fine.
going to say who, but I actually snuck two of the group in through the side door, and
Nice.
they were not recognized and they were not photographed. That was made sure of.
I'm glad they got in. That's all that matters. That's something to have. That's something
They
to
just
have when
wanted.
you're
There was two
sorry.
of them. They just wanted to say they went to 54,
Exactly. Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
and they didn't want to go. And I told them, well, I knew how to handle it, and I did.
Hmm.
That's awesome.
So that is really awesome. So I was going to ask you if you had, like a favorite or someone that you felt you connected more with. So it sounds like that was Derek for you.
It was Derek and Eric.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, we had some
It
friends
was
that
less, but it
actually,
was Derek and Eric.
yeah, that sounds on brand, actually. I want to know how the fans got the phone number to that house and the address and were able to call it and sometimes asked to come over, and the answer was yes. Was that something that was also orchestrated through PR? Because I mean, they had the phone number. Fans would call that house nonstop.
I don't know who, but it was given to somebody who passed it along,
Yeah.
and they never changed it. They got a kick out of it.
I bet. I mean, because they would answer.
They used to answer the phone like, Chinese 100, Chinese 100. The one that had the most fun answering the phone, without a doubt, was Duncan.
He's a
Really?
character.
Oh yeah, I used to do voices that was.
Oh, that's awesome.
But if you called and you wanted to specifically talk to one of the rollers, and they knew you, there was a code word. Like
Oh,
if I would
Oh,
call and I wanted to speak to Eric or Derek or somebody, I would just call and you would just say, "Hi, this is Jeff Grinstein. Is so and so there?" And if you approached it that way, they had a list on the board of people they would put through.
so what was the code word? Do you remember?
The code word was you would say your name first.
Oh, I see. I see.
ah,
I
okay.
prevented it.
Jeff Grinstein. You would say, "Hi, this is Sue.
Yeah.
What's your last name?" And if your name was on the list by the phone, then they would put you through to whoever you want.
Oh, okay.
I
Interesting.
remember the list at one time had like 10 or 15 names. They probably had about 100 when it was done.
Wow. Mm. But
That's
that was quite the party house. I mean, we've heard some stories of that house.
yes.
Rightly so. That's
Yeah.
fine. But this was later, and this was later when Duncan came along, and they didn't have Tam over their shoulder, so they were having a good time, which we applaud.
Like
Well deserved.
I really like Duncan. I tried managing him a couple years ago and doing things with him, but unfortunately, he and I had different views of what needed to be done. And
Mm-hmm.
as much as I love Duncan and I'll always care about him and like him, I just had to go a different direction.
I can see how that could raise issues. Yep, he's very, very, very talented. We just had him in New York during the Tartan Day Parade. He came and performed for the fans, so it was wonderful. Yeah, he's a great guy. So super talented, super
He
Oh, I
is.
talented.
love him. I mean, he's a brilliant songwriter. Some
Yeah.
of his stuff is just absolutely brilliant. I'm lucky enough that I have maybe 50 demos of his songs that have
Wow.
never been released.
Ooh,
Songs that he wrote that I've listened to, probably about 40, 50 songs.
That's
that would
And
make
amazing.
a nice album, unreleased demos.
I'll never release it. That's something private between me and
No,
Duncan.
I mean, if he would want to release it, I think that would be cool.
Nope, that's something for Duncan to release. I
Yeah.
don't do that stuff.
Oh no,
Mhm.
I meant that. I didn't mean for you to release it. I
He
meant that
started
would
to
be
release some of the stuff. I mean, the last 2 years, I haven't been well. And with COVID and me not being well, I just took a step backwards to everything. And there was one night, um, I would say last November, December, that I just went onto my computer and I just played like 15 of Duncan's songs.
wow.
And
Wow.
That's special that
he's
you
a
have that.
genius. He's a
Yeah.
genius.
He
I mean,
is.
I was in the hospital for 10 weeks. While I was in the hospital, I mean, I just reflected my life and things. And I
Mm-hmm.
gotta be honest with you guys, I realized how lucky I was to have the Bay City Rollers in my life. They were just, a godsend for me. And it changed my whole life.
That's a reoccurring theme with a lot of us. I mean,
Yes.
A
absolutely.
year ago, I was at a Music Managers Hall of Fame dinner, and Holly Robertson Pete was there, and we had honored some people, and we started talking, and all of a sudden she goes, "Guy in the white outfit. You were the Bay City Roller guy. I was a Bay City Roller fan."
Oh
And we
my gosh.
Really?
laughing and hugging.
Oh,
It was
that's
so sweet. Her mother
awesome.
was inducted to the Hall of Fame, and she was a Bay City Roller fan.
I'm going to reach out to her to do a podcast because
And
she's married, or she was married to a Philadelphia Eagle, so she owes me.
she still is.
She still is, yeah. Oh,
But
that's
I
an
mean,
awesome story.
I just adored her, and we just started laughing and having a good
Oh,
time.
That's
that is
amazing.
that
Wow.
is amazing.
Is there any questions that you want to ask?
Oh, me? Haven't I been
If you
doing
want
that?
to. No, I mean, ask me something that's off the wall or something. Keep going. I feel like I
Laura.
keep talking and talking, and
Well,
Well,
no,
you have
that's
great stories to tell.
yeah, you do. Well, what do you why do you think the fan base is still just as passionate about them today? Is it because of that shared history we all have and whatever they meant to us back then?
I think the Bay City Rollers in the early days was the change of the girls becoming a girl to a woman, girls growing up, and like something that was meaningful and important to us, we don't let go. We hold on to those things.
Yeah.
That is
I
true.
mean, there are other bands look at the Rolling Stones, look at a band called Styx, look at bands that have been going for 45, 50 years. You
Yeah,
know,
but I don't know. I think it's different. I think this fan base is kind of unique. I think so.
that's
I'm
what I'm
not.
saying. This fan
Yeah.
base is unique. I mean,
Yeah.
there are other bands that have been around this long, but I don't think the closeness and the importance is there, like with the Bay City Rollers.
Yeah. I
You
agree.
know,
Yeah.
I wonder to this day if the guys in the band realize how important what they did was. If they realize, I mean, I know through the grapevine two girls that passed away, they were buried in their roller gear.
Oh,
I
Oh,
mean,
wow.
that's how
mm.
important it was to certain people.
I know that whenever I have the chance to tell them that, I do, and I think that especially Derek is gets it, gets
Yeah,
it, and
I
I
don't
think
think
I
it's
think
lost
Eric
on
does.
them.
I really don't, and I think that they're just as in all of us and what we mean to each other.
I think Duncan got it because he was in
Yeah.
Rabbit and he was in the Bay City Rollers. Duncan
Yeah.
got it. I always wonder if somebody like Les or Ian or I know Alan got it. Alan knew
Oh,
it.
for sure. For
Yeah,
sure.
Alan knew it because Alan and I did have that conversation many, many years ago.
Yeah, Alan
And
definitely
that was
definitely
one of
got it.
I never really had those kind of conversations with Alan, but I remember that conversation with him one day because he went to the store and he was saying how the girls recognized him at the store in Jersey when he just went to buy groceries.
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
said,
no,
"Well, that's what you get for being famous and being the leader."
exactly. But
yes,
even later in life when, the fame wasn't there, he still got it, he still appreciated us as much as we appreciated him.
I lost
definitely.
contact with him. I mean, I know how to reach Derek, but when Alan died, I sent him condolences, and that was the last time we really communicated.
Hmm.
But I would love to reach out to Derek and Eric and talk to them these days because I think hearing it from me is different than hearing it from the girls because I had a very different perspective and I was involved in so many things that most people weren't.
Hmm.
I mean, when I was in the hospital and in my daydreaming days in the hospital, I had nothing to do but, think about my life and
Hmm.
how much they influenced it, how one thing led to another, how Bay City Rollers led to Sid Bernstein, led to me working at Radio City, led to me with Sid and Laura Branigan, which I was with her whole career, which led into this, which led into me working with Frank Sinatra, Sammy Davis, Sarah Vaughan, Dizzy
Wow.
Gillespie, Madonna, and the list goes on and on and on. That never would have happened if it wasn't for the Bay City Rollers.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, that is.
So I mean, my whole life, you know, became something because of them.
It's a
And
beautiful thing.
I thanked them one day years ago. I know I thanked Eric one day when we were in California, and he just, shrugged it off. But I mean, they were a good band. I mean, regardless if they actually recorded the first album themselves, what they had was unique. I mean, the It's a Game tours where they really showed what they can do.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And,
Even
it may have lasted 20 minutes. The show may have only lasted 20 minutes, just like the Beatles.
yeah.
That Philadelphia show, I hardly remember. I remember being attacked and trying to get out.
Oh,
But I mean,
wow.
that's what was fun about it. I mean,
Yeah.
that's where the adventures were.
They were
The
definitely
bodyguards,
adventures.
Gary McPike, their road manager in those days, you know, trying to get information out of him and Patty the bodyguard. I
Oh,
mean,
yeah.
we became friends with these people.
Did you go to the Atlantic City show?
The first show they ever did,
Yeah.
Sid Bernstein promoted that with Danny Fields. Of course, I
Yeah.
was there.
Oh, okay. I was there too. I was there. I
I
was right
was
under Eric.
I was there.
Good, good. That was a fun day. It was so hot. And talk about 20 minutes. That was 20 minutes after they stopped it twice.
You
Wow.
know, I'll be
Pandemonium.
honest with you, I don't remember the show.
Yeah. All I remember is my mom dropped the three of us off and went to walk on the boardwalk with the other moms. And I don't think she had a clue what she was leaving us into. I mean, it was
It was pandemonium.
pandemonium.
I don't think
Pandemonium. I mean,
anybody
absolutely.
realized it. The only people that realized it was the press, and Sid knew what it was going to be like.
I remember being just absolutely drenched with sweat.
Sid
I had
was very
long
worried.
hair. Oh,
Sid was very worried about the girls. He didn't want anybody to get hurt. Remember,
yeah.
Sid has 6 kids, so he was a father, and that was the other thing. Sid always treated the Bay City Roller fans as children, as his own, and
Yeah.
always wanted them to feel special.
I
And
think
that
we
was
did. I think we did. I think just being in that environment, we felt like we were, I don't know. It was empowering for young girls, I thought, looking back. Maybe at the time I didn't think that, but it was something that
you,
we thought
did
was
you
our
guys
own.
think in those days that 40 years later you'd still be involved in the Bay City Rollers?
No.
Not a
Nope.
chance.
Not at
Nope.
all.
Nope.
Mm-mm.
But for us, it's really about the friendships in the community now. I mean, we're all getting older. We've had friendships for 40 years now. Our kids know each other. I mean, it's just grown into something quite different and quite special.
Like I have friends from 1977 I still talk to all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Roller fans.
Oh, absolutely. I wouldn't know Sue's if it wasn't for their music and being able to, to have the internet that connected us. Um, yeah, it's
Imagine
amazing.
how we did this before the internet.
I know,
Do
I
you remember?
know.
Do you remember the hotline, Jeff,
Yeah.
when you could talk through the busy signal?
No, I remember nights where I'd stay up all night calling people, or nights that I was waiting because the Bay City Rollers would switch flights at the last minute. So I remember trying to figure out what flight they were going to be on and how to get the message out there. And I mean, we had people working inside the airlines, inside the hotels. We used to bribe people. We knew everything.
That's
We
I
got
amazing.
was I
information.
was always amazed that they checked in using their real names most of the time.
No, I had every one of their aliases.
What were some of the aliases?
Never gonna tell.
All right. Because there were times where people would call and ask for them and they would ring them through their real names. That always amazed me.
No, I'll tell you 2 of my aliases. I had aliases too. Because if people caught on, or if they would try and get me, they would know the rollers were in that hotel.
Yeah, makes sense.
Oh,
So
okay.
one of my aliases was Alan Jeffries. I changed my first name to my middle name.
Okay.
Okay.
And let me see, what was another one of my good names? I once registered under Elton John, and then I
That's
never
very
did that
funny.
again. I never did that again.
That's
Mm.
awesome.
Mm. No, I had a name that I told Derek I was using one night, and he called me under that name when I was in California because I didn't want anybody to know where I was. I was working with another project, but I used to use crazy names. I had to at a certain point, like when we were in Cleveland or something. I remember that was a crazy gig.
Why?
Why? Because everybody was clinging on me looking for information.
Ah,
I just wanted to give them what I wanted to give them and get away. But they
yeah.
were there a couple of days, and everybody knew what hotel they were in. Everybody knew what floor they were on, and they had security up on the floor, and only certain people were allowed up there.
Yeah.
I mostly didn't go up there because I didn't want to be up there, but they go down to the pool, and of course I would go to the pool and sit right next to them. I didn't care, and
You
nobody
had all
bothered me.
access,
If a
all
couple
access
girls
pass.
tried to do it, they never would have gotten away with it.
Right.
Oh boy,
Those were the good old days.
it
That was
was the
something
good old
very
days.
different.
The good old days indeed. Well, it's probably a good place for us to wrap up, but we could talk to you forever, I'm sure. Tell us what you're doing now a little bit on the West Coast.
Well, I'm living in Vegas. Mostly, I'm actually working. I don't know if you're into comic books at all, but Mark Ruinworld created 112 comics, created it for Marvel, and I represent his widow.
Oh, awesome.
And we're doing that. He's just been nominated for a major award. I'm also working with another group who I've been, God, working with since I'm 17 years old, the Alessi brothers. And believe it or not, I'm also doing commodities, and I'm trying to get my health back from where it was.
Well, that's the most important thing, Jeff.
You know,
Absolutely.
during the process, I lost my left eye, so now I'm permanently blind in my left eye. So
Oh,
I'm just trying to adapt to having one eye.
Okay.
Now I'm going to
Wow.
be like Sammy Davis Jr. and Peter Falk, you know, have a
There you go.
artificial eye. But, you know, being in the hospital all the time really led me to reflect, and I really appreciate everything.
well, thank you for sitting down and talking to us, Jeff. Keep in touch, okay?
You got it.
All
Thank
right.
you, everybody. Thanks for listening.
Thanks,
Thank you
Jeffrey.
so
Take care.
much. Take care.
Bye bye.
Bye
Bye.
bye.
Wow, Laura, wasn't that a lot of fun?
It sure was. I remember seeing his pictures in 16 magazine too, and being totally fascinated that there were male Bay City Roller fans, and his stories did not disappoint.
Yeah, I've always wanted to talk to Horshack. Imagine a guy in roller gear being a virgin. Imagine that.
He
But no,
obviously was a gentleman.
was that was really a lot of fun, but we did let him go before we mentioned that all his current projects that he's working on today, he works with his partner Patty Fantasia, so we wanted to give Patty a shout out. So,
Definitely.
we hope you all enjoyed that as much as we did. We're having way too much fun tonight, and until next time, Laura, what do we tell our friends?
Keep on rolling.
Yes, indeed. Woohoo.